Before in sculpting, we're just going to go through quickly how you can set up a more professional looking interface in ZBrush. As most of you probably know, ZBrush's interface is not particularly, how do we say this, good. It's cluttered, tons of essential features are missing, hidden deep in menus, and it's just not very practical. I mean, it's still not a particularly nice interface, but at least this is a far more practical interface than what you're being shown by default. So I'm just going to go through some of the changes here. First off, Subtool Master is moved over here. Use this quite a lot. I've enabled Store Morph Target. Morph Target is something we're going to use a fair bit later on. It's an extremely important feature, and if you don't really know how to use it, don't really worry about it, because as we will cover it, but it's an essential part of ZBrush. Backface masking. Really important feature. This is for instance, if you're sculpting ears or something. By default, ZBrush will like shred your mesh on the backside. If you enable this, however, it's going to be fine. We're going to go through this later on as well. Topological is also really practical. By default, let's say you want to move this around here. You only want to move one of them. It's going to move both. But by enabling topological, ta-da, done. No issue at all. We also have project all and a blur amount. This is because when we project stuff from subtools, which we will also do later on, we can now control it right here and we don't have to go through all the menus. I've also removed some of the junk here, which simply was not needed at all. Then we have export. By default, group is on, which for ZBrush or for Modo is not a huge issue, but if you're using Maya, this will separate your model into like 100 million pieces. So just disable this one when exporting out. Morph UVs will simply morph your UVs from 3D into 2D. We can also import directly here, so we don't have to go to Tool Import. We can delete hidden, we can hide unmasked, and then we can delete it. This is something I do a lot in my work. Very handy. Auto groups. This will create groups based on a topology. Close holes, close the holes. Zero mesh, well, we'll zero mesh it. Dynamesh, we'll dynamesh it. And resolution will be the resolution of it. And target poly count will be the target poly count for zero meshing. Then we also have one called fixed mesh. Fixed mesh is really handy because sometimes if you want to bring your model into, or if you dynamesh a lot of stuff and you want to bring this back into Modo or Maya, the mesh is going to be massively corrupt by this. Like there's going to be non-manifold geometry and everything is going to be completely busted. So you literally can't import it into software if you haven't checked or clicked check mesh. Group split as well will create a different subtool based on the polygroups. Then just some brushes here I use as well. And this is nice. Enable customize. If I want to customize my interface, I can just click right there. It also enables some favorite subtools, favorite matte caps, just so I can very quickly evaluate the model with them. This interface does not ship with the matte caps here, so you're going to have to gather them on your own, as some of these are commercial. And there is also a light here, which means you can also evaluate the model on different light scenarios. And the way we load this interface in is by going to Preferences and just Load Interface, Load UI. And you just select a file I've provided you. So that's very nice. If you want to customize yourself, let's say you don't have this interface, you can just hit Enable Customize and you can just start dragging and dropping elements around. For instance, if you want rename to be in the UI somewhere, you can just hold down Control Alt and now just drag it over where you want it to be. Then just hit Enable Customize again, or in your case, Enable Customize here. And that's it. Once you're done with your customization, just hit Store Config or Save UI. And it's going to make sure, if you hit Store Config, you're going to make sure that it's going to load this config every single time you restart ZBrush. I'm just going to delete this guy. If you want to delete something, just drag it away. And that's it. I also have some custom hotkeys. Just duplicate this one so you can see. If I hit the one key, let's move this around. If I hit the one key, This is going to solo my selection. This is something I use all the time. And continuing on numbers, number 2 gives me a clay brush. Number 3 gives me clay buildup. Number 4, move. Number 5 is damp standard. Number 6 is clay tubes. Number 7 is thermodynamic. Number 8 is move topological. This is essentially the same brush as move, only with topological masking activated. And 9 has polish. And that's pretty much it for hotkeys. And also for customization. I haven't done a whole lot here, but it's just enough to speed up workflow quite a bit. Another thing which is also nice to do is if you go on a document, you can also set a range here of the gradient. By default, there's a gradient here, which makes it look really nasty. So I disable the gradient right away. Also, one of the issues with gradient is if you're doing some kind of like compression of QuickTimes from ZBrush, or you're doing print screens or whatever, there's going to be banding when it comes to gradient. So by simply disabling gradient completely, or just moving up and down, you avoid banding, and it's simply nicer to look at least I think so. And that's it for customizing. In the next video, we'll actually get into how to set up the project using the model we created in Modo.